morning sun filtered through the courthouse's soaring windows, casting long golden fingers across the marble floor that gleamed with a chill only polished stone can hold. Attorneys in somber suits shuffled their papers, bailiffs whispered hurried instructions, and the low hum of the audience blended into an expectant sigh. It was just another day, another hearing in courtroom 7. Until a 3-year-old girl transformed routine into revelation. What did she see that no one else could? On a wooden bench near the front, little Emma Reynolds sat clutching her beloved bunny, its soft ears pressed against her chest. Her brown curls, tied back with a faded pink ribbon, framed wide, curious eyes that drifted over the sea of faces and flickered at the long shadow of a German shepherd's harness. Beside her, her mother Rachel adjusted her blazer's collar, holding a practiced calm that trembled underneath. Rachel was here to testify about a masked figure she'd glimpsed fleeing a warehouse robbery 6 months ago. Her direction and the time of flight vital to the ongoing case. With no one to watch Emma, the judge had reluctantly allowed her to remain, provided she stayed silent. But silence, it seems, was never her plan. Exactly at 9:03 a.m., the side door swung open. Officer David Cross entered with martial precision, leading Rex, a black and tan German shepherd trained to obey a single command from his handler. Rex's harness gleamed, and his powerful gait sang discipline. The courtroom carried on. The judge, Ellen Mathers, pulled everyone to order, and opening remarks commenced in a flat drone. Emma shifted, her gaze snagged on the dog's taut form. She stared, unmoving, as if calling forth words from somewhere deep. What storm was gathering in her small heart? Suddenly the hush shattered. "Bad man!" Emma's tiny voice rang out clear as a bell, yet dropping like a bomb. The stenographer froze mid-keystroke. The prosecutor's head whipped toward the bench. Even Judge Mathers paused, pen poised. Rachel gasped, leaning toward her daughter. "Emma, what did you say?" she whispered, panic flickering in her tone. Emma raised her arm, lips trembling, and repeated, "Bad man." Then she pointed, not at the dog, but at Officer Cross. Who did those 2 words expose? Whispers flooded the room as Judge Mathers's gaze sharpened. Rachel stammered apologies, insisting Emma must be confused. But the child's eyes held certainty. Assistant District Attorney Michael Green stood, voice cautious yet firm. "Your Honour, I request a recess." At her nod, bailiffs guided Cross away, and murmurs swelled like a rising tide. Emma nestled into her mother's arms. Eyes still locked on the uniform and on Rex, whose head snapped toward his handler with alert intensity. Outside, a gust twisted the courthouse flag. Inside, the true storm had already begun. What truth lay hidden beneath those fervent eyes? In the judge's chamber, tension dripped from every polished surface. Officer Cross stood rigid, arms folded, a sheen of sweat betraying his practiced calm. "You're agitated," Judge Mathers noted coldly. Cross bristled. "She's 3 years old, hardly credible." Her pen tapped a warning rhythm. "She said you locked her. That's serious. I will not ignore it." Each word clipped the air like a razor. Could he deflect what a child had seen? Meanwhile, in a small witness waiting room, Detective Elijah Monroe entered with a measured stride. Renowned in internal affairs for making the guilty squirm, he knelt before Emma, voice gentle. "Hi, Emma. Do you remember where you saw that man?" The child buried her face in Rachel's sweater, then lifted it, nodding. "In the dark place with the barking." Her small finger pointed at the floor. "It smelled like metal." Monroe's jaw tightened. "Did he hurt you, sweetheart?" Emma shook her head, then whispered something that froze his blood. "He hurt the dog." What horrors had transpired in that darkness? Back in the courtroom, Rex lay beside the stand, chest rising in measured breaths. Yet when the chamber doors opened and Cross did not emerge, the dog rose, body tense, and planted himself in front of Emma's chair, a silent sentinel protecting his small charge. His ears pricked, jaw firm, every inch a watchful guardian. The room held its collective breath. Which side would justice stand on? Moments later, Monroe strode in, a file clenched in his hand. He laid it before Judge Mathers. Cross had been the first responder to Emma's disappearance last October. If reports spoke only of a child found unharmed, with no mention of scratches or trauma. But Emma's arms bore faint lines of old wounds. "She could not have locked herself in that shed," Monroe said grimly. A photograph of the bolt-locked door circulated between them. Judge Mathers' gaze was steely, Hold him for questioning. Quietly. Across the benches, hearts pounded. How deep did the deception run? In the hallway, 2 uniformed officers flanked Cross. Munro's voice was calm but unyielding. You're on administrative hold pending internal investigation. Cross's jaw slackened. You're joking, he spat. Munro's eyes did not waver. Behind them, Emma sat clutching a paper cup of apple juice she never drank, her gaze fixed on the door. Then Rex entered, slow and deliberate, eyes trained on Emma. He stopped beside her chair, lowered his head, and let out a soft whine. Emma's hand reached out to touch his fur. That is him, she breathed. The barking dog. Sometimes the smallest witnesses speak the loudest truths. Judge Mathers granted Munro's motion. Review Cross's entire service history. Bring in the department veterinarian and a trauma consultant. Dr. Javier Benson, a specialist in canine trauma, approached Rex. The dog submitted calmly until Benson lifted a hind leg. There, beneath coarse fur, lay fresh scars, old burns, lash marks, evidence of cruel punishment hidden beneath the uniform's badge. Benson's intake was sharp. The court murmured. He's been hurt by someone who knew how to hide it, Benson declared. Could one dog's scars reveal a human's sins? Detective Munro and ADA Lorraine Shepherd reconvened in a side corridor, files and sticky notes plastering a whiteboard. Munro underlined Cross's name in red. There are 5 other children, he said, pointing to dates and GPS logs matching Cross's patrol routes to disappearance reports. Each report was vague, each outcome glossed, Sherwood's lips pressed into a thin line. This reaches higher, Munro warned. We need full warrants. How many lives have been overshadowed by silence? Digital forensics unlocked fragments of dashcam footage. Cross exiting his cruiser in an alley near an abandoned warehouse, the very site where Emma was found. With a judge's emergency signature, law enforcement raided Cross's personal storage unit. Inside, they discovered files on missing children, encrypted memory cards, and at the back, a rusted kennel marked by claw scratches. Inside sat a collar stamped with Cross's badge number and a blood-stained whip. Munro whispered to Rex, "This is your prison." What fury lay behind that sham of authority? Back in the courthouse, cross-examination gave way to confession. Cross sat shackled in an interrogation room, expression hollow. Munro entered with Rex at his side. Cross flinched. Memories flickering. ... Munro placed a photograph of Emma beside the kennel image. After hours of silence, Cross finally spoke. "I will talk, but I need protection." It goes higher. In that confession lay the seeds of a network's downfall. How far would the vine of corruption stretch? Weeks later, sunlight once more filtered through the tall windows, illuminating mahogany benches filled with families of victims and off-duty officers hopeful for redemption. Sergeant David Cross, robes replaced by shackles, stood at the defendant's table and pleaded guilty to child endangerment, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice. Murmurs swept the room, but all eyes remained on Emma, her feet swinging above the floor as Rex sat loyally at her side, wearing a therapy vest instead of a muzzle. Could a child and her dog reshape justice? ADA Shepherd rose, soft determination in her voice. This courtroom has seen cruelty, but it has also witnessed extraordinary truth. Truth spoken by a 3-year-old. Emma didn't just point. She proclaimed loyalty, protection, and the power of a single voice. Rex stood by her even when hurt, and together they uncovered a betrayal of trust. Judge Mathers's eyes glistened as she echoed, "We must listen when the smallest among us speak." Gasps followed as Cross was sentenced to 40 years without parole. How does one quantify justice? Afterward, in the courthouse garden, reporters gathered as Rachel and Emma, now under protective care, were led through a corridor of cameras. Detective Munro knelt beside Emma. "Do you want to say goodbye to Rex?" he asked softly. Emma frowned. "He's not leaving," she said firmly. Munro turned to Rachel, whose eyes brimmed with tears. "If the department approves," Rachel whispered, "we want to adopt him." Munro smiled. "He belongs with his hero." Can a rescue become a home? That evening, at a press conference, District Attorney Shepherd announced the Emma and Rex initiative, mandating independent canine oversight, improved officer screening, and trauma-informed protocols for minors nationwide. Images of Emma and Rex pointing and standing together went viral, their silent partnership speaking louder than any headline. Could one girl and one dog reshape a system? In their new home, Emma sleeps curled beside Rex, whispering, "You stayed." And Rex, vigilant even in dreams, closes his eyes knowing at last he is safe. Because sometimes truth stands not in words, but in the unwavering loyalty of a child's tiny hand and a dog's 4 protective paws. Will their story inspire the world to listen? Always.